नमस्कार, बहुत स्वागत है आपका इंडिया लीगल रिसर्च फाउंडेशन के इस खास कार्यक्रम में। हर बार की तरह एक नया मेहमान हमारे साथ। अगर मैं एक आम भारतीय होने के नाते आम अपने दर्शकों से एक सवाल पूछूं कि अपनी ज़िंदगी में आपको सबसे ज़्यादा मुश्किल किस बात की लगती है? जाहिर सी बात है, बहुत सारे मुश्किलों के बीच जो सबसे बड़ी मुश्किल आपको दिखाई देती है वो है टैक्स। हर साल इंतज़ार होता है कितना टैक्स देना है, कितना बच गया, कितना बचेगा। इसके अलावा अगर एक आंकड़ों पर हम नज़र डालें तो शायद अगर सभी आंकड़ों को इकट्ठा किया जाए और सभी के कमाने वाले लोगों के दिलों से पूछा जाए तो उनके अंदर शायद सबसे ज़्यादा वक्त पे जब अदालत के सामने या किसी भी अथॉरिटी के सामने जाने की इच्छा होती है तो शायद तभी होती है जब इनकम टैक्स का मामला आता है। और आज हमने इसीलिए एक ऐसे मेहमान को आपके सामने हम रख रहे हैं जो कि इनकम टैक्स से ही जुड़े हुए हैं, यानी कि ITAT के चेयरमैन हैं और अध्यक्ष हमारे साथ GS पन्नू साहब। इन्हें हम यूँ नहीं छोड़ने वाले हैं, हम इनसे तमाम टैक्स की बारीकियों को भी समझेंगे, कहाँ कहाँ हमें राहत मिल सकती है ये भी जानने की कोशिश करेंगे, सरकार हमारे लिए क्या कर रही है ये भी पन्नू साहब हमें समझाएंगे। और साथ में जो वकील हैं जो टैक्स की प्रैक्टिस करना चाहते हैं, जो इस क्षेत्र में आना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए क्या क्या विकल्प यहाँ पर हैं ये भी हम आज सबके सामने रखेंगे। तो सबसे पहले पन्नू साहब, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत हमारे इस खास मंच पर। मुझे 2-3 चीज़ें जब आप आने वाले थे और मैं सोच रही थी कि इस कार्यक्रम को किस तरह से लिया जा सकता है। एक तो बहुत ही वैसे ही टैक्स की समझदारी हमारे ऊपर बड़ी भारी पड़ती है, एक तो वैसे ले सकते हैं, और एक अगर लाइट मूड में कहें तो तमाम, अगर आप फिल्मों के शौकीन हो तो तमाम ऐसे गाने हैं जिसमें टैक्स का बड़ा वर्णन है। मुझे याद है किशोर कुमार ने तो एक बड़े मजाकिया अंदाज में लिखा भी था, जब उनके पीछे इनकम टैक्स पड़ी तो पीछे पड़ गया इनकम टैक्सम, बम बम नाचे किशोर कुमारम। आम लोगों की भी हालत कुछ वैसी ही होती है। पर मैं ज़रूर जानना चाहूँगी कि ITAT की क्या भूमिका है। इसकी जो कल्पना 1941 में की गई, आज़ादी के पहले की संस्था है, उसकी क्या भूमिका है और किस तरह से वो टैक्स से पीड़ित लोगों की मदद करता है?
Thank you for inviting me here. और in fact इनकम टैक्स एपेलेट ट्राइब्यूनल एक ऐसी संस्था है, वन ऑफ द रेयर इंस्टीट्यूशन इन द कंट्री, जो प्री इंडिपेंडेंस डेज से चल रही है। एज यू सेड 1941 से ये इंस्टीट्यूशन है। एंड द यूनिकनेस इज इट्स ए क्वासी जुडिशियल बॉडी where there are two minds which work. One is the judicially trained mind, a lawyer, and a technically qualified either a chartered accountant or an IRS officer who is otherwise well versed with income tax laws. So एक ऐसी संस्था है जो कि dispute resolution करती है with blending of two thought processes, and that is the uniqueness of our institution. और दूसरी इसकी एक खासियत ये है कि 1941 में जब ये सेटअप हुई थी, that was the first experiment with tribunalization of in the country, and it has continued. जितने बाकी tribunals बने जो commonly we know about CAT, Central Administrative Tribunal, CESTAT, which used to deal with excise and customs, they were all based on the experiment of the ITAT, and that is the uniqueness. And income tax के जो matters after the first appeal of the CIT appeals, if the taxpayer is not satisfied, यहाँ department को खुद को ये लगता है कि वो CIT appeal के orders के तसल्ली नहीं हुई, तो they can come in appeal before us also. So we have both the sides. It's a neutral body, and I can tell you, statistically speaking, since 1941 till about this year, we have settled about 31 lakhs of cases, and based on the data that is there in the public, we also conducted research at different points of time. About 80 to 85% of orders get approved by the higher courts. In fact, the other feature of our institution is हमारे orders जो so far as facts are concerned, they are final. Orders जो जाते हैं appeal में either to the high court or to the Supreme Court, they only can go against any question of law which is there, and that too substantial question of law. And it's not an automatic appeal which is provided. It depends on the satisfaction of the High Court if they want to admit the appeal in case they find there is a substantial question of law. So these are the features. The other feature is, which is so different from the civil court, since we have some lawyers also here and budding lawyers, that it is not a court, though it has all the trappings of a court. That's how Supreme Court has defined us. It has trappings of a court in the sense that we are informal. We do have a system of the bench being there, and the lawyers arguing their matters. The CS can argue the matters for their clients. The taxpayer themselves can also argue their matters. And on the other side, you will find mostly the revenue officers who are defending their own cases. So it's a very informal court. We are not bogged down by the kind of pleadings and that all the filings that you are supposed to do in a normal court. You can also hope that जिस दिन केस लगेगा पहली बारी आपका समाधान भी उस दिन हो सकता है. That is possible in the tribunal. That is the uniqueness of our system. And I say with confidence that perhaps this is the only institution in the country as of today and for the last 3 years where there is a negative growth in our pendency. Our pendency levels have been going down year by year, primarily for the reason that we keep pace with whatever appeals come in. We started in 2017 with a pendency level of about 92,000 appeals. Today we are down to 36,000. And we are at 30 stations. 41 में when start किया था, तो probably we were at 3 stations, Delhi, Bombay and Calcutta. Now we are at 30 stations, and we have about 63 benches at different stations, our head office being at Mumbai. I'm saying all this for the professionals who can look forward to a good practicing days before institutions and who want to come into the direct taxes field for that matter.
लेकिन सर एक बड़ा सवाल है कि ITAT में जाने की नौबत कब आती है?
Yes, so let's start with a basic thing that जब आप रिटर्न ऑफ इनकम भरते हैं अपनी, तो डिपेंडिंग ऑन द पॉलिसी ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, अब तो वो सेंट्रलाइज्ड है एट द बोर्ड लेवल, आपकी स्क्रूटनी होती है रिटर्न की नहीं होगी. अगर स्क्रूटनी होती है, देयर कैन बी डिफरेंस इन द असेसमेंट between the taxpayer and the assessing officer. So thereafter you have a first right of appeal before the commissioner appeals. CIT appeal जिसे कहते हैं सरल भाषा में, वो इन हाउस मैकेनिज्म है डिपार्टमेंट के अंदर जहाँ पर वो आपका समाधान कर सकते हैं अपील का. If the taxpayer is not satisfied with the CIT appeal order, then he can come in appeal to the tribunal.
Yeah.
Tribunal is the first forum which is outside the department. And the department also can come in appeal before us. So that's how you can approach if you're not satisfied with the CIT appeals order. And you have a specified number of days once the order is received by you that you can come in appeal. There are certain orders which also can come to us directly also. For instance, tax trusts and all, if they go in for recognition with the commissioner, if commissioner declines it, they can come to us directly also.
Yeah.
But majorly, the assessments, after having been seen by the first appellate authority, they come to us.
बट ITAT के भी जो डिसीजंस हैं उसके खिलाफ भी अपील हो सकती है?
ITAT के ऑर्डर्स के खिलाफ जो डायरेक्ट अपील पॉसिबल है हाई कोर्ट में, बट ओनली इन केस देयर इज अ सब्सटेंशियल क्वेश्चन ऑफ लॉ. And that too, the High Court has to be satisfied, as I said in the opening remarks. So it's so far as facts are concerned, our orders are final. And so that's the beauty of the tribunal for that matter. And believe me, majorly our decisions are not overturned by the higher courts, because ultimately the dispute is more on the factual aspects of the matter. And whatever is the legal position, the tribunal applies it. It does it even-handedly because people who are manning the tribunal are more or less experts in the field of taxation, unlike the judges in the higher courts who are otherwise constitutionally law trained and in the generalized field. But our Supreme Court and High Courts have been rendering some excellent jurisprudence which have been laid down and which we apply very, 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 very often in our institutions.
वैसे सर हर जगह हम देखते हैं तो एक जो सबसे बड़ी समस्या है अदालतों की कि पेंडेंसी बहुत है. आपने ये एक अच्छी बात बताई कि आपके यहाँ बहुत तेज़ी से सारे मैटर को रिजॉल्व किया जाता है, लेकिन क्या आप इसके अलावा ITAT में भी क्या ADR की कोई भूमिका है या कुछ चीज़ें हैं जो मीडिएशन में जाती हैं? क्या इस तरह के जो अल्टरनेट डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन मेथड्स हैं उसको भी अपनाया जाता है ITAT में?
ITAT में तो ये प्रावधान नहीं है अल्टरनेट डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन का, because ITA is a part of the appeal process which is there in the Income Tax Act. But certainly under the Income Tax Act there are provisions which deal with the alternate dispute resolution. In fact, ADRs come into picture only in case there is the normal appeal process is time consuming or it is costly. And giving the example of how the ITAT is functioning, except Delhi and Bombay, all the appeals which are filed in the month of April, May, they have already been fixed before the benches. Okay. It's only in Bombay and Delhi it takes about 2 months because there is some level of cushion that we have. Otherwise, our appeals, our dockets are regular. But yes, so far as the ADR mechanism is concerned, for the reason that it is time consuming, but also to impart certainty, like the big taxpayers, the foreign people who have to come in, the MNCs who have to come in. So ADR mechanism is also very, very fruitful. Okay. And coupled with the advanced authority for ruling, advanced ruling authorities, so they look for certainty in their tax affairs, even when they want to come to do business in India. So those are features which certainly stand in good stead for the taxpayers and provide certainty and uniformity to both sides, the taxpayer as well as the department.
Yeah, but what about contempt orders? क्या ITAT के पास कोई ऐसी पावर है अगर और in which situation contempt पर कार्रवाई कर सकती है ITAT?
The tribunal की जो proceedings हैं, as I said, they are informal, but at the same time they are judicial proceedings. Yeah. Even in the context of the Code of Civil Procedure and Code of Criminal Procedure also. So our proceedings being judicial, the orders are expected to be followed. Time and again this has been laid down also by the higher courts also, that the tribunal orders, whenever they are passed, they have to be implemented faithfully and diligently by the lower authorities. It can happen that the different benches and different stations may pass some contradictory orders because our orders go not to one high court, they go to different high courts depending on the jurisdiction. But so far as the finality of the order of the case of a taxpayer is concerned, it is final and the assessing officer is bound to follow it. Now there can be instances where it has been very, very rare in my career of 24 years, I have not seen it perhaps except on one occasion, where there was a willful disobedience to follow an order. We do have power of contempt because of the Contempt of Courts Act 1971, wherever we find that there is a deliberate attempt not to follow an order, not to implement an order, or not to honor an undertaking which is given before us, or where we find that there is a attempt or an action or any kind of obliquely it has been noticed that there is attempt to in the administration of justice there is any kind of shortcoming which is coming in. We definitely have the powers to do that, but we draw up a case for contempt and then send it to the High Court as per the Court of Contempt Act 1971.
वैसे सर इनकम टैक्स जैसे मैंने आप शुरू में ही बताया कि वो नाम सुनते ही इतना डर हो जाता है कि आपके फैसले आने के बाद मुझे लगता नहीं है कि कोई ऐसा हो जो पालन नहीं करना चाहे, कोई अगली मुश्किल में फंसना चाहे। पर सरकार के जो न्यू टैक्स पॉलिसी है उसको लेकर बहुत चर्चा हो रही है और ये कहा जा रहा है कि ये एक तरह से न्यू टैक्सेशन रिजीम आ गया है और उसमें बहुत कुछ माना जा रहा है कि सुविधा दी जा रही है, हालांकि अभी भी इसको समझना आम लोगों के लिए बहुत मुश्किल भरा है। क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं उसके, क्या बेनिफिट्स हैं और क्या आपको लगता है कि इससे आने वाले समय में जो टैक्सेस को लेके जिस तरह के केसेस आते थे उसमें कमी होगी?
Frankly, though I am a chartered accountant and doing tax matters for 23 years now, but I may not be quite at home to answer this question because जो CAs, जो lawyers अभी younger हैं, they do it day in day out. They will be able to tell you that. But primarily, the thought process of the government is that as you initially you said that tax बहुत मुश्किल होता है और there are, and certainly yes, the jurists have said in so many words that there is a section, there is a subsection, there is a proviso, there is a proviso to proviso and all those things. It's a complicated law. Yeah. and further compounded by the fact that every year there is a new Finance Act which comes in.
Yeah.
So the existing provisions are tinkered with. But certainly the present government has some thought process over it, and because of so many exemptions being spread out, that you may take some benefit of the LIC policies, you may take benefit of the HRA. There are so many exemptions which are available to a salaried person and to others also. Ultimately, the idea is to use the fiscal laws for equitable distribution of wealth.
Yes.
So the one way of doing it is that you widen the tax base, and the other way to do is that you reduce the exemptions and the discretion is available with the authorities, and reduce the tax rate instead.
Yeah.
So this is the new tax regime is the attempt towards that direction, that you reduce the basic tax rate for everybody, and at the same time cut out the exemptions which are available. So as a layman, I would say that everybody will have to evaluate as to how much is the tax coming under the old regime, where you have a host of exemptions and claims and deductions which you can claim, and compare it with what the tax liability is under the new regime, where you have a lower tax rate.
Yeah.
And this is what even the law allows you to do.
For that, they have new tracking system as well, as a finance minister has mentioned.
No, that's a different thing altogether, the new tracking system. Well, we are all familiar with the earlier regime of the Inspector Raj, when you could see people physically going door to door and trying to look for tax evaders and looking for tax evasions. Now that's that's an old age now. Now the businesses, our lives work in a very, very different ecosystem. It's all technology driven. Your transactions can be tracked. There is a trail which is possible because of technology which is available. And the department is also using the same technology to trace your transactions, to track your transactions. And so much of data is coming in that you can actually look at the data and look for the bigger fish, as I would call it, and leave out the small taxpayers. So that this is more of a deterrence. So what this will enable is that you will have a larger tax base. This will be a reward also to the honest taxpayers, because the tax rate will come down in the normal course of things. So therefore, we will be moving towards more of progressive taxes in this regime.
And what is this Vivad se Vishwas scheme which has started?
Well, this is one of the most ambitious schemes launched by the government of India, and that was primarily aimed at reducing the tax litigation. This was in this budget of 2020. Yes, this was introduced, whereby the government looked at the number of cases which were stuck up in different, maybe at the CITP's level, the tribunal level, the high courts and the Supreme Court. So therefore, at all the 4 levels, there was so much of number of cases which were locked up. The tax revenues were locked up. The cost of litigation was there. It was affecting the taxpayers. It was affecting even the department also, for that matter. And this scheme envisaged that there was no immunity given as such under the scheme. The taxpayer could settle the disputes by paying the taxes and also saving on the interest and penalties. The government did sacrifice its portion of interest and penalties, but what it gained was that the money which was locked up in areas, locked up in litigation, and at times fruitless litigation, that was realized, and the taxpayers also benefit. Like for instance, our pendency levels went down because about 15 to 20% appeals which were settled under the Vivad se Vishwas scheme. So we could, because of this reason, the ITAT could concentrate on the larger cases, concentrate on the taxpayers who were more serious disputes were involved. And similar is the case with the department. And of course, the taxpayer is not expected to be in the business of litigating with the department. So ultimately, अगर आप settle कर सकते हैं, तो करिए.
लेकिन सर ये माना जाता है कि भारत में गरीबी के जो कारण है, उसमें 2 चीज़ें बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट है. वो ये है कि जिस तरह से डायरेक्ट टैक्स और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स, 2 तरीके के टैक्सेस हमारे पास हैं, और ये इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स की वजह से हमारे को ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम होती है. और तो और अगर आप ओवरऑल एक आंकड़े की बात करें तो 10% जो हमारी पॉपुलेशन है उसके पास 77% हिस्सा है ओवरऑल वेल्थ का. अब ऐसे में जो और 6% लोग ही इनकम टैक्स दे रहे हैं. 2 सवाल है मेरा यहाँ पर. क्या आपको लगता है कि डायरेक्ट टैक्स मोड में और ज़्यादा शिफ्ट करने की ज़रूरत है? दूसरा, टैक्स नेट को कैसे बढ़ाया जाए कि ये जो बड़े लोग हैं, जो अलग अलग रास्ते से बच जाते हैं और टैक्स नहीं देते हैं, उनको इस नेट में लाया जाए और जो आम है, उस आम व्यक्ति है जो कमाने खाने वाला है, मिडिल क्लास है, उसको ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा टैक्स में सुविधा मिले?
ये तो बिल्कुल ही वाजिब सवाल है और इनफैक्ट फॉर एनी रिस्पॉन्सिबल सिटीजन, फॉर एनी रिस्पॉन्सिबल स्टेट, दिस शुड बी द ऑब्जेक्टिव दैट द कॉमन मैन, द पर्सन जो हम खाने, स्मॉल टाइम पर्सन जो है, उसको टैक्सेस की सुविधा मिलनी ही चाहिए. So far as this inequality of wealth is concerned, India is no exception. It is there in every part of the world. But yet, every country has its own way of dealing with it. And I am reminded of my school and college days when we used to read that the indirect tax system is aggressive. And direct tax system is always progressive system of taxation. Because, as you rightly said, that 6% people pay taxes. But GST and indirect, 100% people paid. Because it is levied on all across all products which are used by the rich, the product which are used by the common man also, the poor man also. So that is why you would find that majorly indirect taxes in a country like ours is a major collection area for the government. And if we move more and more towards progressive taxation by increasing the tax base, so obviously the share of the direct taxes would increase, which can always help in reducing the taxation levels of the indirect taxes. Often economists say that indirect taxes go into the cost of production, and which ultimately is passed on to the consumer in the by way of selling prices. Well, yes, that's a fact. So you would see that the luxury products, the more expensive products, they carry more of GST rates.
Yes.
And then in comparison to products which are being used by a common person. So certainly with the present enabled department, because of the technology enabled department, there is more and more of surveillance, there is more and more of focused and targeted assessments, and more focused litigations also when we are pruning down the unnecessary litigation. All this will certainly lead to better tax compliances and thereby reducing the dependence on indirect taxes, which any progressive economy should be looking forward to, and so is India for that matter.
बिल्कुल. लेकिन जो जैसे अथॉरिटी ऑफ एडवांस रूलिंग AAR का गठन किया गया था, ये मानते हुए कि टैक्स के जो केसेस हैं वो कम हो जाएंगे, क्या उससे वाकई कोई लाभ हुआ है?
Well, you see, I will not have the statistics frankly, but one particular measure cannot be taken to see as to what is its impact. If you look at the overall scenario, and look at, if you go from, see, mostly this advanced ruling is being used by the non-resident taxpayers, the taxpayers who come out from outside, because they look for certainty, and certainty because they are not exposed to the Indian system, and the Indian tax people are also not exposed to their manner of doing businesses. So therefore, they are the ones who prefer this to approaching the AAR, and to that extent it is a very good mechanism. Normally, the appeals before the AAR application are disposed of between 1 to 1.5 years. And if you compare it with the time taken in the normal appeal process is definitely lesser. This is lesser.
पर आपको नहीं लगता है जो सेटलमेंट कमीशन था वो ज़्यादा अच्छा ऑप्शन रहा है, उसको ख़त्म किया गया, एंड इसमें जो AAR में भी वक्त लगता है, पैसे लगते हैं, उससे कहीं ज़्यादा अच्छा हमारे पास विकल्प था कि हम सेटलमेंट कमीशन में चले जाते, जो ऑलमोस्ट मैं अगर आम भाषा में कहूँ तो एक मीडिएशन की तरह से काम कर रहा था.
Settlement Commission had the power, let's understand why this happened. Settlement Commission had the power to grant immunity from prosecution and penalties at times, and people could go and settle their matters. Now, the point is, it's not that it has been done away with. जो पेंडिंग केसेस हैं उसके लिए तो ऑफ कोर्स देयर इज द इंटीरियम बोर्ड व्हिच इज बीइंग सेट अप एंड दे आर सेटलिंग दोस केसेस, बट परहैप्स द थॉट प्रोसेस विद द गवर्नमेंट इज when you are getting into the scheme where you have focused assessments, there's so much of data mining which is coming in, you have pruning, every time now the government comes with the list as to the cases which they need not be litigated before the higher courts. It's a case of no litigation to be done by the government. So at the same time, perhaps the government is thinking that rather than affording an opportunity for more and more opportunity people to settle, let there be deterrence also. And for a small taxpayer, this has not been given up. Now you have a system of, if I'm not mistaken, it's called dispute resolution committees now.
Yes.
Now for the small taxpayers where the tax dispute is up to 10 lakhs or where the income is up to 50 lakhs, they can still go to them. And the best part is, these committees, they don't have a physical interface. You can do it through the faceless assessment.
But अब तो गवर्नमेंट ने भी in-house administrative mechanism शुरू किया है.
They are doing it more and more.
Yeah. So how this is working?
It's one thought process. See, under the Companies Act, the in-house mechanism which is settled now is जो compoundable offences थे otherwise in the Companies Act, they have given it to the in-house mechanism, so which has freed the criminal courts, which has freed the tribunals from enforcing those things. And the in-house trained officer, he's much more easy, better placed to handle that situation. So when there is so much of the government is responding in a manner which is to foster the corporate governance and good business practices. So therefore, perhaps the thought process is that even in the case of settlement commission, let there be compliances. The rates of taxation, India's rate of taxation is comparable with any country, any part of the world for that matter, and we have very, very progressive rates of taxation. So it has to be seen in an overall manner as to what is, whether in such a ecosystem which is there for the new businesses and also for the foreign investors coming in, do we require a body like settlement commission?
और आप देख रहे हैं हमारे ख़ास कार्यक्रम जहां बातचीत चल रही है बहुत गंभीर विषय टैक्स पर, लेकिन इसे एक एक करके हम परत दर परत समझने की भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं. GS पन्नू साहब हमारे साथ है इस खास कार्यक्रम में. इंडिया लीगल रिसर्च फाउंडेशन के इस विशेष बातचीत में हमारे साथ हमारे ख़ास मेहमान GS पन्नू साहब हैं. और हमने अभी तक समझने की कोशिश की है कि ITAT ट्राइब्यूनल की भूमिका क्या है, किस तरह के चुनौतियाँ इसके सामने हैं. इसके अलावा बहुत सारे ऐसे बातें हैं जो ख़ासकर टैक्स से जुड़ी हुई हैं सर, उसको एक बार फिर से हम समझने की कोशिश करेंगे, खासकर सरकार की नीतियों को भी लेकर, और क्या उम्मीद हम कर सकते हैं आने वाले समय में ITAT से. बातचीत का सिलसिला एक बार फिर से शुरू करते हैं और इसमें सर क्वेश्चन आंसर का भी एक दौर होगा. सर आपने ये तो बताया कि अगर टैक्स को लेकर रिलेटेड जो मैटर्स होते हैं वो कहाँ कहाँ जा सकते हैं, उसमें क्या क्या प्रावधान है. बीइंग अ CA एंड बीइंग अ सीनियर एक बिल्कुल इस मामले के जानकार के रूप में मैं आपसे आम लोगों की भी ये इच्छा ज़रूर होगी, मेरे सारे दर्शकों की भी, और चाहे वकील हो या कोई किसी भी जॉब में हो, टैक्स को बचाया कैसे जाए, पैसे बचाए कैसे जाए, इसका क्या रास्ता है, आप ज़रूर बताइए.
Well, as a taxpayer, I am also a taxpayer for that matter. So when I look at my Form 16, मेरे एम्प्लॉयर से आता है जब फ्रॉम माई ऑफिस, उनको भी लगता है कि अरे कितना सैलरी मिलता है, कितना चला गया. But then we must have a overall system, and the philosophy is taxes is the cost of civilization that we have to pay. Ultimately, the government which works for us, the system which works for us, the security which is provided to all of us, the country's security, the civic amenities which we look forward to, the education we look forward to from the state, the protection of the state that we look forward to, all has to come from taxes only, one form or other form of taxes. So therefore, one must look at it as something which is if somebody may put it as a necessary evil, but I would put it as the cost of civilization for that matter. That's one aspect of it. And the best way to save taxes is that pay it honestly. Because you will never feel the sense of loss of saving on taxes if you pay it honestly. There is, I was also a practicing chartered accountant at a given point of time in my career, and there used to be situations where we had the task of making the taxpayer pay efficient taxes, and one of it was that where the business grows. As the businesses grow, as the investments grow, there are tax-related accelerated benefits which are available. So those are situations which you can always advise your clients that if you grow more, if you invest more in machinery, because the provisions of the Income Tax Act, you are able to grow, create more for the country, and also save taxes. That's one way of doing it. Always look for this, that there can be a possibility where you may plan your affairs in a manner where you can avoid payment of taxes. But certainly, there cannot be a situation where you should advise your clients to evade taxes. Our jurisprudence has developed since English courts, where there is a clear distinction between plan your affairs in a manner to avoid taxes, but never plan your affairs in a manner to evade taxes. So the best part is that you should consult your CA or the lawyer and look at the basic tax which is required to be paid and disclose your incomes honestly.
बिल्कुल, लेकिन सर जैसे पूरे साल एक कमाने वाला आदमी परेशान रहता है अपने तमाम फाइनेंशियल एडवाइज़र्स से, बैंक वालों से, वो कहते हैं ये बॉन्ड ले लो, ये पैसे बच जाएंगे, टैक्स बच जाएंगे। क्या आपको लगता है कि आज की तारीख में इस न्यू टैक्स रिजीम में कोई बॉन्ड लेना या ये भी माना जाता है कि मकान ख़रीदना भी एक टैक्स बचाने का जिसको कहा जाए लीगल वे है टैक्स बचाने का, क्या ऐसा है?
Well, I again would say that the person who's from practice area will tell you better. But like for example, if you get some capital gains, अगर आपको किसी तरह को gain ऐसा हुआ है asset के बेचने पे, so there are provisions which allow you to invest in houses, new construction of housing, and save on taxes. So look at those avenues which the government allows you to, the tax laws allow you to save your taxes. Certainly कर सकते हैं, आप क्यों नहीं कर सकते? You can invest in bonds, you can invest in tax-free securities of the government of India, and those are situations which you can study.
बिल्कुल, और जिस तरह से आपने बोला वकीलों को कि एक नया एवेन्यू खुल रहा है, हालांकि बहुत दिनों से ये ट्राइब्यूनल है, बट आजकल जो नए वकील हैं वो इस क्षेत्र में ज़रूर जाना चाहते हैं। क्या टिप्स है आपके पास उनके लिए?
Well, for the people who want to come into direct taxes field, the first and the foremost is that you must be very, very thorough with the subject. As we had discussed earlier, that every year the tax laws keep changing. There is some tinkering which happens every year. So therefore you have to have it, you have to be very, very up to date with what is required. And at the same time look for, mostly the lawyers who come and appear before our courts, we tell them that you should start looking at the ITRs 1 to 100. That's the time जहाँ सारा jurisprudence लिखा गया है हमारे courts का, higher courts का, right from English courts. And उसके बाद जो today we are in 400 almost ITRs which are being reported, but those are the application of the initial jurisprudence developed. So you must have your fundamentals right when you practice, when you come before the authorities, when you advise your clients. Your fundamental jurisprudence dealing with taxation should be very, very strong. And that's the way you will have the culture of advising in a very transparent, efficient, and of course above board manner to all your clients.
बिल्कुल, क्या उनके पास जो नए वकील हैं उनके पास कॉमर्स का बैकग्राउंड होना ज़रूरी है या फिर मैथ्स का बैकग्राउंड होना ज़रूरी है? क्योंकि कई ऐसे बच्चे होंगे जो BA LLB करके आते हैं, उनके लिए भी टैक्स उतने ही मुश्किल है जितना हम सबों के लिए। तो क्या आपको ऐसा लगता है कि वो मदद करते हैं?
टैक्स सब्जेक्ट मुश्किल नहीं है। टैक्स को, टैक्स पॉलिसीज़ को, टैक्स को इम्प्लीमेंट करना सेक्शंस को कई बार मुश्किलात आती हैं। जहाँ तक people with commerce background are concerned, they are better placed to understand the businesses. That's the only difference. But एक LLB जिसने किया है वकील ने और उसको exposure है tax laws का, बाकी commercial सारे laws का, he can apply his mind. I mean, there are people who have done their, I am a science background person, but yet I did my chartered accountancy thereafter. So it's the question of how you apply yourself. It's very simple if you do it properly. That's about all.
नए वकीलों के लिए इंटर्नशिप के भी प्रावधान है वहाँ पर ITAT में?
We don't have a formal system of internship, but we are in the process of developing it so that our senior members के साथ कोई ना कोई वकील रहे, कोई interns लगाएं. हमारा concept चल रहा है अभी. We should do it. But informally we are offering internship to some of the candidates.
Okay. बहुत सारे लोगों के साथ जब हमारी बातचीत चल रही है, बहुत सारे सवाल उधर भी घूम रहे हैं। एक-एक करके सवाल लेते हैं।
Good afternoon, sir. This is Akshat. I'm from Hyderabad. So, sir, my question is, with the growing complexities in the tax regime system, do you think it is important to educate school students about basic taxation system?
Well, the school student don't need to learn the tax provisions, but the curriculum is there for the commerce, how to make up your accounts, what should be contained in your accounts, what are the business accounting practices. That's a good foundation for a student. And anybody who's otherwise interested to look into the taxation aspects, certainly yes, some elementary taxation can be taught.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Anjum. Sir, my question is, sir, if I win a lottery or a cash prize in a competition, so is I'm required to pay tax on it?
No.
Of course. Of course.
Sorry.
I think there is some provisions which you have to look for it. If there is a casual income, there are some exemptions available, but it all depends. You may need to go to a CA for that matter. If there is a dispute, come to us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, please.
सर जैसे हम इंडियंस हैं तो उसमें ये होता है कि टैक्स प्लानिंग एंड टैक्स अवॉइडेंस देयर इज़ अ टू टर्म्स सो वी ऑलवेज यूज़ द टैक्स इवेजन विच इज़ रॉन्ग इन इनकम टैक्स एक्ट सो व्हाट इज़ द प्रोसेस ऑफ टैक्स प्लानिंग बिकॉज इंडियंस को टैक्स प्लानिंग नहीं पता है बट टैक्स इवेजन पता है बिकॉज वो रॉन्ग है तो दैट व्हाट इज़ द प्रोसेस ऑफ टैक्स प्लानिंग
It depends on who the taxpayer is. There is if you are, as I said, gave the example of a business. If a business is growing, it will be obviously investing more and more in machinery. You will have accelerated depreciations. So those are some ways you can plan your tax. Chori and tax evasion, I don't need to define. You said हम जानते हैं. So other planning is like, for instance, you may make some investments in the names which are of your children or your family, which are long-term investments, which may yield returns over a period of time. So those are which are I mean, your tax planners can definitely share them with you, but which are legitimate, which are required at the same time also grow your own financial portfolio is something which is the tax planning. Tax evasion, I don't need to define. You said you know it. Kindly don't share it with others.
सर एक और प्रॉब्लम है इसके पहले कि दूसरा सवाल है किसानों को लेकर अगर हम बात करें वी हैव लाइक डिफरेंट लेवल ऑफ टैक्स पेयर्स जैसे बहुत बड़े इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट के लोग हैं किसान है और ख़ासकर मैं किसान एग्रीकल्चर को लेकर इसलिए पूछ रही हूँ कि अब स्टार्टअप्स कई सारे एग्रीकल्चर फील्ड में आ गई हैं जो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज़ में यूनिकॉर्न कंपनीज़ में डेवलप हो रही हैं इज इट एनी स्पेसिफिक रूल्स फॉर देम एंड या कोई ऐसी उनके लिए राहत भी है
Since very early Indian governments का different governments का भी ये stand रहा है that the farm incomes or the agriculture income are free from taxation. At least the federal taxes नहीं है उसके ऊपर. And primarily twofold reasons as I see it. One, agriculture sector is one of the biggest employers in the sense that whole lot of population is engaged in agriculture. It's an informal sector. That is the second reason. And the thirdly, the taxation is not there for the simple reason that most of the farmers are very marginal farmers. Hand to mouth situation रहती है. They don't have richness is associated with them. So therefore, agriculture income is free of tax, and so therefore, wherever there is a sale of agricultural land, also consequently it is taken as free of tax. But yes, there is always competing claims where the government may resist this kind of a taxation in cases where the government may feel that there is a funneling of black money transaction which is coming in, or a non-agricultural land may be passed off as agricultural land. Those are disputes which are confined to bigger taxpayers. But more or less, our agriculture taxation is absent in India at the federal level.
There is another horizon, sir, another avenue. आजकल बहुत सारे लोग इन्फ्लुएंसर्स हो गए उनका जो पैसा है वो अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे हैं वो यूट्यूब पे हैं इंस्टा पे हैं उनका पैसा वो बाहर से आ रहा है दे आर नॉट एन आर्टिस्ट और समथिंग लाइक दैट क्योंकि अभी ये टर्म ही नया है अगर उनका कोई डिस्प्यूट होता है अगर पैसे नहीं आते हैं या कुछ इस तरह के या जो पैसे आते हैं उस पे क्या रूल्स लागू हैं
this is a source of potential dispute which may come up before us. Yeah. So I may not like to say much on it, but I'd just like to say one more thing. The question leads to at a global level now the businesses they are acting cross border. So the traditional barriers of borders are now breaking, and so was the rules of taxation also between countries. So this is one way of looking at it. The technology is so driven. For instance, if we go into the meta world, you may be witnessing a concert in Paris, and somebody may be performing from New York, and you're watching from here. So therefore, these are still dynamic situations where the rules of taxation have to develop a bit. And so this is one grey area again still, but when it comes up before us, you will find answers to it on the bench.
पर आज की तारीख में ITAT कितना मॉडर्न हो पाया है?
Well, we are in the sense we have a very dynamic website which has got all the information relating to the case status. When are your hearings to take place? What is the status of your case? And you can do your filings of your appeals, your applications, your petitions. Everything can be done through e-filing mode. And we are moving towards a paperless environment also, where you don't need to carry your physical files to argue before us. And so we are quite modern in that sense. And the only thing is that we have yet to come into the hybrid mode as a consistent mode of hearing. But I must share with all of you that when the COVID started in March, April 2020, we were the first institutions to start working on the virtual basis. April 2020, we started virtually. And our disposal speed in the entire 12 months did not go down at all in comparison to other years. And that's the reason why we could maintain our reduction in pendency levels over a period of time. So we are looking forward to the tribunal which is fully digitized and fully paperless in times to come.
That's good.
This is because you are being a CA. People earn all their lives and they invest in special places where they get dividends. And after retirement, they keep paying their taxes. Why isn't there a dividend tax deficit? I mean, a lower dividend tax when people are not earning, like in the US, they have qualified dividend which earns 20% tax instead of the full 20%. Why can't we have one like that, that people who are retired and survive on their dividends, on their investments, why can't they pay less tax?
Well, I have still some years to go before I join your league of being retired, and I will share the same thoughts as you have. But you see, we have to leave it to the better wisdom of the parliament, and I'm sure the finance minister would look into it, what is to be done with the people who have already retired. This can always be a part of job for the policy planners, not for me to say anything on that as the administrator of taxation.
No, I'm just asking you as a CA. Is it possible? Is it a better thing to do that dividend tax is less than a regular income tax?
Well, the government, if you look at it, for the last 10 to 12 years, government has been experimenting. First, the taxation of dividends was in the hand of the shareholders. It went back into the hand of the the dividend-paying companies. The DDT was introduced, the dividend distribution tax was introduced. Now it has gone back into the hands of the taxpayer, who the ultimate shareholder is. So they have been, trying to work it out. But certainly, the shareholders do enjoy some minimum tax limits, even in the kind of on the dividends also. It's there, but yes, I appreciate as you are no longer earning during your retirement days, you do look forward to your kitty being tax free. But this is a toss-up which is always there between the taxpayers and the government, which has its own role to play. It's nothing to do with perhaps taxing a sector or not taxing a sector, but perhaps more to do with the basic philosophy of collecting some minimum tax from everybody. It's more to do with that perhaps.
Yes, next one.
Sir, do you think that lower tax for big industrial houses means higher tax for the common man?
Well, in isolation, a lower tax for a regiment or a segment may not be the answer to anything for that matter. It's a package always. What is your level of deterrence that you have in your systems? What is the level of encouragement that you have in your systems? And after all, which side is the businesses? For example, there are certain provisions which are related to business investments, which are being invested into high machineries or into the manpower also. So therefore, it's a complex situation as to, but certainly the basic philosophy is lower rate of taxes should lead to better compliances and better collections for that matter. But then it can't be seen in isolation. There has to be some deterrence. There has to be collection also from the side of the department also. And journal, I'll tell you, time permitting, there was a question put to us at one of the forums as to do judges of the tax judges, do they get influenced by the economic conditions? So I was put this question, and mercifully I had a day in between to look at this question, because I have been adjudicating matter 23 years, but never came to my mind as to how it is influenced. So there was one empirical study which I found. Normatically speaking, I said, no, there cannot be you have to go by the law. But there was an empirical study conducted by one of the universities of Europe. They found that when the economy was doing good, even the benefits, even the taxes were also, most cases were decided in favor, the jurisprudence in favor of the taxpayers. And when the economy was down and the state, and perhaps the state exchequer was going down, so the judges also found a need to aid the government in collecting taxes. So therefore, it all depends on how the economic conditions are at a given point of time. What are the targets of collection of the government? Where are they being put to use? So all those things, it's a complicated situation where one has to look at what is the rate of taxation, or what is the ideal rate of taxation for that matter.
So my question is regarding gifts. If my father is giving me a transaction, if there's a transaction between my father and me, then that's a gift. If my father is giving money to my mother, then that can be considered as a gift. But what is the status of transaction between the live-in partners? Will that be considered as gift now?
I don't know what the section is, but section 56 governs this, and where they have defined what the relatives are. You have a look at it. I may not often be able to know about it. But blood relations, yes, it's free. That's what I know.
इनफैक्ट बहुत सारी चीज़ें अभी बदल रही हैं सर, उसको लेके हो सकता है कि टैक्स के भी रूल्स रेगुलेशंस को बदलना तो पड़ेगा। लेकिन सर एक और बड़ा सवाल ये है कि अब जिस तरह से हमारी इकोनॉमी बूम कर रही है, स्टार्टअप्स की जैसे मैंने बात की, मेक इन इंडिया, डिजिटल इंडिया, तमाम चीज़ें करने जा रहे हैं। स्टार्टअप्स सबसे ज़्यादा उनके ऊपर क्योंकि वो अभी कंपनी नई शुरू हो रही है, टैक्स के जो रूल्स रेगुलेशंस हैं, हमने एक तरफ स्टार्टअप कह दिया, लेकिन रूल्स रेगुलेशन शायद उतना सपोर्ट नहीं कर पाते हैं अगर हम स्टार्टअप की बात करें। क्या आपको लगता है कि ITAT में इस तरह के केसेस अब आ रहे हैं धीरे धीरे ज़्यादा स्टार्टअप को लेके, और उसको लेके कहीं अलग से कुछ सोचने की ज़रूरत है, कोई अलग बेंच बनाने की या कोई अलग इस तरह से कमिटी बनाने की ज़रूरत है स्टार्टअप्स के, खास करके स्टार्टअप्स
even under the income tax laws also, startups have been given some benefits, or very often we have not seen many disputes coming in. We don't have much disputes coming in. Whatever my experience shows over the last few years, it's only basic disputes for recognition or getting exemption on a particular period of time, and they're quite liberal about it. And startups के disputes mercifully कम है अभी तो।
और CSR एक आम लोगों के दिमाग में ये है कि CSR एक हब हो गया है जहाँ पर टैक्स को बचाने का या इवेजन जिसकी हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, वो एक CSR एक हब हो गया है। क्या आपको वाकई ऐसा लगता है कि CSR एक हब है, या फिर CSR को बिल्कुल पायस नज़रों से देखना चाहिए?
नहीं, for us as a institution which is independent of both sides, we have been adjudicating disputes also of CSR expenditures in a very even-handed manner, and I never felt it that there is some kind of purpose-driven expenditure or otherwise. There can be genuine disputes between the taxpayer and the authorities. I don't think that it has reached that levels where we can feel as an adjudicator between the two sides that there is some kind of more than what meets the eye. That's not my experience, frankly.
Negative growth in pendency from 2017 to 2020. Now, these 30 stations which came up, were they in tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities?
Well, we are almost at every station where there is a high court, with a seat of a high court. And at two of the stations like Varanasi and Dehradun, we are there as circuit benches. Mostly state capitals and important towns.
We didn't have them earlier.
No, we have grown from 41 to 30 stations over a period of time.
Okay.
The last has been in 2017 when we opened up the bench in Surat. And then thereafter we had in Varanasi circuit bench and Dehradun about 2 years ago. So this has been coming up over a period of time. And our benches have also grown over a period of time. Like Delhi we have 9 benches, and Bombay, which is the head office, has 11 benches. Pune is another station in Maharashtra which has 3 benches. Nagpur is another station in Maharashtra which has 1 bench. So, for instance, Maharashtra will have 3 stations, and there can be a state where there is only 1 bench. Like in Tamil Nadu, we have only 1 bench in Chennai. It has 3 benches. It caters to the entire city, entire state. So it depends on, mostly what we are saying is, over a period of time, wherever there is a seat of High Court, our bench is there. That's all.
ITAT को लेकर सर अब चूँकि वक्त बदल रहा है, हम लोग 75 साल पूरे कर चुके हैं आज़ादी के, और ये संस्था तो आज़ादी के पहले की संस्था है। आने वाले समय में क्या क्या विजन है आपके, किस तरह से इसमें और चीज़ें ऐड ऑन की जा रही हैं? साथ ही मैं जब आप बेंचेस की बात कर रहे थे तो मैं ये सोच रही थी कि क्या हमारे यहाँ ज़्यादा ऐसे लोग टैक्स इवेजन करने वाले लोग हो गए इसलिए इतने बेंचेस की ज़रूरत पड़ रही है छोटे छोटे शहरों में, या इसको हम यूँ माने कि हमारी इकोनॉमी अभी मजबूत हो रही है इसलिए ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग टैक्स पेयर्स हो गए हैं? किस तरह से देखा जाना चाहिए इसको?
वो बात नहीं है टैक्स अवेयरनेस बढ़ाने की, लेकिन दिस इज़ अ कॉन्सेप्ट वेयर द जस्टिस हैज़ टू बी टेकन टू द डोर स्टेप ऑफ द पीपल. आफ्टर ऑल टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट हर जगह मौजूद है, हर सिटी में टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट है, तो वहाँ टैक्स पेयर्स आर देयर. असेसमेंट ज़रूर होनी है. देयर इज़ बाउंड टू बी सम डिफरेंसेस बिटवीन द टैक्स पेयर एंड द रेवेन्यू डिपार्टमेंट. So therefore, instead of people being coming all the way to bigger cities to settle their disputes, the idea is that we must have our benches at the stations where the people are there. So that's one reason. And secondly is the sheer workload that is there because of that. That is the second reason. And thirdly, of course, we have seen this, that wherever the ITAT opens its benches, there is a development of jurisprudence itself. Because if more and more people practice before the tribunal forums, there is a better understanding of the law. There is a dissemination of information and knowledge with the authorities and the general fraternity there. So these are the reasons why we have grown. But one good thing of our growth is we have the same pattern of having a judicial member and a technical member on the bench, which started in 1940 and continuing till today. So our pattern has remained the same. We have only expanded because of our work which has increased.
हाँ बिल्कुल, लेकिन हर जगह कहा जा रहा है, आप कोर्ट्स की बात कर लें, जजेस की बात करें, हर जगह कहा जा रहा है कि वहाँ मैन पावर कम है. क्या आपके यहाँ मैन पावर सफिशिएंट है या आप भी उस तरह की समस्याओं से रूबरू हो रहे हैं?
Well, the recruitment processes have, by inherently because of the system of recruitment, it takes some bit of time. So there is always a time lag between people who are able to, people when they come in and man the benches and the time of the retirement, the superannuations and all. But keeping the pendency levels which are in position, which we have presently, we are adequately staffed, though it is not fully staffed. The process is already on. We will be getting more members also very soon.
आने वाले समय में सर क्या प्लान्स हैं आपके ITAT को लेकर?
Well, being an era which our Prime Minister says decade, so therefore we are also moving towards a fully paperless and a digital tribunal, and where we will be able to hear the matters even in a virtual platform or in a physical platform, both options being made available to the taxpayers and tax-savvy members. Our staff will be tax-savvy for that matter. Our entire service will be tax-savvy. Even today, all our orders are available on the website. Our pronounced orders, our final passed orders are always immediately uploaded. Our daily orders, with the वकील जो common भाषा में हम जो जिमनी orders बोलते हैं, they are all on the website by the evening of the day, by 6 p.m. So we are moving towards a tribunal which will fully digitalize, paperless, more efficient, accountable, and more transparent for that matter.
और सर आम व्यक्ति या चाहे किसी का, चाहे वो कंपनी चलाता हो या कमाने खाने वाला हो, क्या आप सलाह देंगे कि वो क्या करे कि आपके दरवाजे तक उसको आने की ज़रूरत न पड़े, उसका कभी मामला ITAT में ना आए?
The only thing is that you file your return of taxes honestly and pay your taxes honestly, because our system allows you to assess your own income at the time of payment of taxes and pay taxes accordingly. So pay it honestly and comply with the law. You don't need to come to ITAT, and I am sure if you come to ITAT, it will be a very pleasant experience for you.
थैंक यू सो मच सर इस बातचीत के लिए आपका. और आज हमने जिस तरह से GS पन्नू साहब से बात की, और जैसा मैंने शुरुआत में ही कहा था कि टैक्स मेरे लिए तो कम से कम ऐसा शब्द रहा है जो मेरी समझ में कभी नहीं आया, लेकिन जिस तरह से इन्होंने सभी चीज़ों को हमारे सामने रखा, मुझे लगता है कि हमारे तमाम दर्शक और हम सभी के लिए टैक्स अब वो एक रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है। बस एक ही सलाह है कि आप नियम से रहें और टैक्स को जो रूल्स रेगुलेशंस हैं उसके हिसाब से पे करते रहें। फिर भी अगर कभी आपको ज़रूरत पड़ जाए तो ITAT आपके पास है और वहाँ जाकर आपको न्याय मिलने की उम्मीद ज़रूर बन सकती है। तो आज हमारे इस कार्यक्रम में इतना ही। अगले हफ्ते फिर आपके सामने होंगे। नमस्कार।